What Dallas Turner brings to the Minnesota Vikings from the guy that covered him for his whole college career. It's Locked On Bama, Locked On Vikings crossover here on the Locked On Podcast Network.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, thank you so much to my hashtag everydayers, those of you who are hanging out with me throughout this whole weird sort of slowdown time here on Locked On Vikings while I'm out of town, airing pre-recorded podcasts. I appreciate you all so very much for hanging out. If you are new here, hello and welcome. This is usually a daily podcast that you can find wherever you find your favorite podcasts. You can find it on any podcasting app like SiriusXM or wherever else you listen to shows, as well as YouTube and Amazon Fire and Roku. Just download the Locked On Minnesota Sports app. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So today on the show, as I mentioned, this is a pre-recorded podcast. I am recording it in the first bit of May. So if there is any major news that you're wishing for me to cover and I'm not getting to, we'll get to it when I am back, which will be, I think, Monday, I think it's the 20th. So circle back for that. But for now, it gives us this nice moment of peace. We're not like immediately distracted by the next piece of red meat. And that means that we can sort of slow down, talk to people, and really take in the two new major Vikings that joined in the draft, in JJ McCarthy and Dallas Turner. Today, we're talking about Dallas Turner. Big long interview with Locked On Bama's Luke Robinson. We talked about the other Bama guy as well, Will Reichard. So without further ado, here is Luke Robinson of Locked On Bama. All right, welcoming in Luke Robinson of Locked On Bama. A couple of Lukes here talking about Dallas Turner, maybe a little bit of Will Reichard later. Hey, man, thanks for coming on.
Happy to be here. And look, just always thrilled to talk about Alabama players going on to the pros. I love watching them get better and develop. And it's always been something that I've truly enjoyed. I don't really have an NFL team. I just have I'll pull for any NFL team that's got Bama dudes on it.
There you go. Who has the most Bama, right? Because the Vikings, we just talked about this before we started. The Vikings had no Crimson Tide until this draft. Now they got two.
Boy, it's hard. I mean, I used to be able to tell you right off the bat. That's why I grew up a Dolphins fan. They used to have like Bob Baumhauer, Tony Nathan, and people like that, right? But I'd say Philadelphia. That'd be my guess, my stab at it, but I'm not 100% sure. Philadelphia's got a lot of Bama dudes, and we include Jalen Hurts in that, by the way. I know that he ended his career at Oklahoma, but he did get a degree from Alabama. I think he would consider himself a Bama guy. He went to Oklahoma out of necessity. He didn't go because he was unhappy with the Crimson Tide. I think that he went literally out of necessity. I mean, Tua Tagovailoa was the better quarterback. I don't think anybody would dispute that, especially in college. And but they have, they have Devontae Smith over there. Who, I mean, he's a legend. So they've got 3 or 4 other ones too. Landon Dickerson comes to mind. Josh Jobe, and I can't. It's hard to rattle them all off now. Nick Saban spoiled us.
I got it. So I looked it up, and you are correct. There's 7 Crimson Tide on the Eagles. You also got Eli Ricks, Terrell Lewis, and Tyler Steen.
Oh, wow. I can't believe I forgot about Lewis, because I'm going to tell you, that guy you talk about looks like Tarzan. Now, look, usually you follow that plays like Jane. He doesn't play like Jane. He just looks like Tarzan. So. And
then you got 5 in Cleveland with Jerry Jeudy and Amari Cooper, Dalvin Tomlinson, Jedrick Wills, Tony Brown.
Yeah, that's it's funny because Tony Brown's sort of a journeyman, and Jerry Jeudy just got traded over there, and Amari Cooper was just traded there the year before, and Amari Cooper also a legend. I mean, Alabama's had a nice run of wide receivers.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, I'm not a big college football guy. I get involved with it. I start, catching up with guys around when draft season starts. And then by the time the draft happens, I pretty much put it away. So I'm not super well versed in the world of Alabama. And I didn't really get to know Dallas Turner until like 2 weeks ago. So as a sort of fresh set of eyes to this, what do I need to know about Dallas Turner that I can't find by like the cursory Googling that one would do when they're first starting to research somebody?
Yeah, first of all, I wouldn't expect y'all would even have had a thought Dallas Turner would end up there, right? I mean,
Right. Yeah, no, I was thinking he's a Bear, maybe the Falcons take him. You're thinking top 10 for that guy.
everybody had him going 8 to the Falcons. That made the
Yeah.
most sense. That made
I mean, the
most sense.
Falcons went way off the reservation, so.
And you guys should probably dislike the Falcons, right? Didn't they knock y'all out of the Super Bowl when they went to the Super Bowl?
When I was a kid, yeah.
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 So
That's been forgiven. I think because of what the Saints did about a decade later. The Falcons, the Vikings and Falcons have gotten together, and then the Vikings did their Minneapolis Miracle to the Saints, and the Falcons are so there's a camaraderie there. But now Kirk Cousins is over there and stuff, so that hatch has been pretty buried.
I got you, but going back to Dallas Turner, when my co-host Jimmy Stein and I have some terminology for some Bama guys. We call them, some of them are Saban bots, meaning they're like Saban robots on the field, right? I think Dallas Turner is, if he's not a Saban bot, he's really close. First of all, he is a good dude. You don't think of you don't necessarily want your defensive end you don't think of them as,
you don't want kind eyes on that guy, huh? Yeah.
You don't want them to be kind, or you don't think of them as being the most intellectual. That may be a stereotype, whatever, but you want them mean and vicious and just go see ball, get ball kind of guy, right? But Dallas Turner, he is that guy. And in fact, I would say, if anything, a lot of Alabama rivals thought he played almost past the whistle, which I think was I don't agree with that. I personally don't, but I like it because Dallas Turner also is a good dude. You're going to love him. His parents got great parents. And I think that's something, a lot of times that really helps somebody grow into being a great person. Dallas Turner has been investing his NIL money. He has not been spending his NIL.
Ooh, okay. So he's smart.
Oh, his dad was a wealth manager for a while. Okay, his dad was a super athlete for I think it was one of the Florida schools, like Florida A&M, one of the historically black colleges and universities, I think, something like that. And he held the all-time scoring lead for a while. But his dad was a wealth manager. He played some professional basketball, I believe, but also a football player. And so that is sort of like Dallas Turner. He's got this long reach. He's got sort of a basketball build about him.
Yeah.
He's a lot like Will Anderson. Will Anderson, who went to the Texans last year, defensive rookie of the year. I mean, just a superstar. I mean, Will Anderson's going to be a problem. And I think Dallas Turner is too. If I were ranking them, I would rank Will Anderson ahead. There are a lot of people who disagree with me.
I mean, he went third overall, so makes sense.
Yeah, I'm a big Will Anderson fan. Will Anderson, also from a great family, has like 4 or 5 sisters that helped raise him. I mean, he's got great parents too, but like, it's just weird. He was the only son and he grew up to this menace. But Dallas Turner's sort of the same way. I mean, he is a menace and he gets after the ball. And again, I know in the end, if you're a Vikings fan, what you really want is you want a mean football player. Okay, you got that.
Yeah.
But also understand you got somebody that I think is going to represent your community and your whole institution very well.
That's all really exciting. I want to ask a little bit more detail about like what that means on the field. Really excited to get a guy that, is going to be able to represent the Vikings well. He's already showed up with a lot of swagger. He's sort of been taking over the room. Everybody loves it. But I want to ask a little bit more about the on the field, a little bit of detail. So we're going to get to that next. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You can find anything there if you want to gamble on some sports, whether it's an NFL future like division odds. The Vikings are plus 250 something at FanDuel right now, or even like rookie of the year futures. Dallas Turner favored to be defensive rookie of the year, or you can go gamble on a baseball game, whatever else you want to find. And right now you can get $150 in bonus bets, win or lose, if you visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and sign up there. So if you are new and sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon, you can get $150 in bonus bets back from your first bet, no matter what it is and whether or not it wins or loses. Just free gambling money, so go claim it on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thanks so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. When you're done here, if you want more Minnesota sports talk, go to Locked On Minnesota Sports. You can find a 24/7 streaming channel that is all Minnesota sports all the time over there on that YouTube channel. So go assault your ears with Minnesota sports talk. A lot going on in Minnesota sports right now. We got this draft. We've got Twin seasons just kicking up. Timberwolves in the playoffs, obviously. But here in Minnesota, in football land, we are looking forward to Dallas Turner potentially becoming the premier edge rusher on the Vikings. And that's a kind of hard ask because they spent the most money by far at edge rusher in free agency. They got two guys, Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel, that are very much slated to be like the starters. And then they add a third guy into the mix with Dallas Turner. Those guys will, of course, compete for reps and all that stuff. But in Alabama, I know Nick Saban does a lot of rotation. So when I'm watching Bama tape, I'm like fast forwarding through several drives in a row going, where's 15? At Alabama, was he the guy, the edge rusher, or is it more of a dirty work role sometimes?
A little bit of both. I mean, he was really the edge rusher, though. I mean, he's SEC Defensive Player of the Year. And he could have made the argument for it probably the previous year if there weren't a Will Anderson. So, I mean, the fact that Alabama had Will Anderson and Dallas Turner on the same squad is ridiculous.
They're kind of always doing that.
Yeah, I mean, this particular bunch, and look, I grew up in an age with Derek Thomas. And so, for me, Derek Thomas may be despite how many people Saban has had that have been awesome, like Will Anderson, like Dallas Turner, Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, on down the list. Derek Thomas may be my favorite player of all time. I mean, people your age may not know this. He had 27 sacks in one season. And that was before you played 15 games in a year. That was when you played 12 games in a year. That's just unbelievable. But I would say Will Anderson and Dallas Turner, probably in that order, have been the scariest pass rushers for the Crimson Tide since Derek Thomas. Now, there have been some good pass rushers, but those two back-to-back have been the scariest pass rushers. And again,
so what do you mean by scary? Because like you said a couple times, like imposing, scary. There's guys that are a threat that are, okay, we got a game plan for this guy, but it feels like you're going at something a little more horror movie. What do you mean by that?
Because I don't think there's not anything you can do. Because you think, okay, he's gonna try and bull rush us. We're gonna have a plan for that. He can, but he's also quick twitch. I mean, Dallas Turner is quick as a hiccup. He can just outrun a phone call. He's just quick around the edge. You just don't see him coming. He doesn't quit. He's relentless, like some kind of killer in a horror movie. He's relentless. He does not stop. Watch a lot of his tape. And again, if you want to watch some tape that you go, okay, I want to know why you think he's scary, go see last year's LSU game. Alabama was playing LSU with Jaden Daniels, who was the number 2 pick in this draft. He's a great player. I love him a lot. And LSU has Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. They were also drafted here very early. And LSU was just going toe for toe for Alabama, right? Toe for toe with Alabama, right? And Dallas Turner ends up making a sack towards near the end, not towards the end of the game, but it like sealed the deal because it ended up, I think he also batted a pass that ended up being intercepted by Bama that sort of made it out of reach for LSU. But the sack he had on Jaden Daniels, which was, some people called it dirty. I think he actually got called for intentional, what do you call
targeting?
Unnecessary roughness.
Not the one that gets him thrown out.
It didn't get him thrown out, but it was, frankly, I didn't think it was unnecessary. I just thought it was, look, 10 years ago, it would have been what you call.
Yeah, you get these flags that are hit too hard kind of stuff where you hear the noise and you just instinctually throw it out, even though no rules got broken.
Yeah, they are protecting the quarterback now a little bit much.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that it changed the game because now Jaden Daniels, I think, ended up coming back in the game. He had to go out for a minute, but it changed the game because it instilled fear in LSU a little bit. Now, it also took out their best quarterback for a minute, but it really did change the game. And Dallas Turner also had, he's the unfortunate guy that every now and again he would be after somebody so quickly and he puts his hand out, he might grab a face mask. He did that against Ole Miss a couple of years ago, and it ended up being a horrible looking face mask. It looked like it was just the god awfulest thing, but his hand got caught in the face mask and it jerked his face.
Yeah, you put your hands out, you grab what you grab. I definitely understand that.
What I'm saying though is when you have things like that, no matter how unfortunate they are, no matter how unintentional they are, they become associated with you and they stick to you in your reputation.
Yeah, now you're a dirty player. Yeah.
You're thought of as a dirty player. He's not a dirty player. Just trust me on that. He is a dude that will get after your tail. And I really think you guys are going to love. And I think about the Vikings and the division that they're in, right? And the Bears are going to be having a new quarterback. Jordan Love is pretty
Jordan Love
good.
running around, Caleb Williams running around. You're going to need some relentlessness to chase those guys down. You're going to need
somebody fast. And that's Dallas Turner.
That's the other thing. Speaking of that speed, there's a versatility to this as well. He would line up on 5-tech. He'd line up on the inside. He would loop around. He would back off into coverage a lot. This is something that's really important to Brian Flores and what the Vikings do on defense. He does not want these guys hands in the dirt against the same tackle all day long. He's moving them around. So that versatility, that work out for Dallas Turner, or was it one of those things where you're like, man, I kind of wish he just rushed against the tackle all day. Why are we getting cute?
Well, that's why I loved some people always thought that Nick Saban's kryptonite was a mobile quarterback. That's only true if you're a mobile quarterback like Johnny Manziel in college or Cam Newton in college or somebody like that.
You could extend the play forever and then the match rules break down. Yeah.
By the way, those two guys won the Heisman Trophy. So, I mean, you can't just be a mobile quarterback and be a dude. You got to be the man. And but Dallas Turner is the perfect player to take on these kind of mobile quarterbacks. He's also very instinctual. He's also very smart. He is willing to learn. When you play as early as he did in Alabama's defense, and Alabama's defense under Saban was quite complicated, and you do have to be versatile. And it's also, you have to keep your ego in check because, I know that when you go to Alabama these past 16 years, a lot of places, most of the time before you got to Bama, right, you were the guy. Like nobody could touch you.
For sure.
When you get in Tuscaloosa, there's a lot of guys just like you. And so there were guys that couldn't handle, oh my God, I'm not the guy anymore. But if they ever could figure out where they fit in the system and accept it, they could excel because then they had so much help that was around them. You think it's so easy to coach all these 5-stars. It's just like, it should be so easy.
You're managing egos. That's part of the job. Yeah.
Managing egos is the toughest part of the job when you're a talented team. It's because look at the NFL. When a team wins a Super Bowl, what happens? Everybody raids them for their free agents, right? And but because you don't have them long. So, but in college, before all this transfer portal stuff, you might have had a lot of 5-stars on your team, and you got to be able to stroke all these egos. You got to be able to tap into what makes these guys tick. You didn't have to really do that with Dallas Turner. You never had to reach him. You never had to wait for the light to turn on. The light was on when he got there. And he was ready to learn. He was ready to rock. And the dudes that were like that, the other guys, that's why I know he's going to be successful at Minnesota. The other guys who were like that were Julio Jones and Amari Cooper, Tua Tagovailoa. They already knew we're the dude. We just need to, when we get out there, we're going to make it happen. And that's what they did.
That is so interesting because I hear about that a lot too from the world of going from college to the NFL, especially if you were the dude in high school and then you were the one that humbled everybody else when you got to college because they were all bound down to you. And then you get to the NFL and everybody's like that and you like experience it for the first time, which I think is why, especially these big schools. I mean, look, they got the best players, but also like that can be a helpful thing of like,
right.
Okay, yeah, I've like been humbled already. I know how to like be a cog in a greater machine. And like in the tape that I've watched, I've definitely seen what I would call like unselfish plays, like just being able to kind of say, okay, I'm just going to run contain here. And this is someone else's sack. And there's a maturity to that.
And this from watching a lot of NFL. A lot of times your defensive scheme is going to be something that funnels an offensive player to another tackle. And you get no stats for that. Okay.
Right. Like if you're the edge doing box fits, you're just containing. You just see gap contain and that run is never going to come to you. And then you've done your job.
And somebody else gets the glory. But it's a lot like an offensive lineman. I mean, I know they keep track with pancake blocks and blah, blah,
whatever.
blah.
No.
But I'm saying
you never talk about O-line until they mess up. Yeah.
And for whatever reason, a lot of people don't think you're a great defensive lineman unless you have X amount of sacks. Well, Dallas Turner had X amount of sacks, plus he knew how to funnel somebody to wherever they need to be for the other guy to make the tackle.
Yeah, that understanding. Yeah, that's the smart stuff you were talking about. Man, I could sit here and talk ball with you all day, but I do want to make sure that we get a little bit of time in to talk about the kicker, Will Reichard, and tell me the ballad of the kicker. There's always a great story there, so that'll be next. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by Monopoly Go, the hit twist on classic Monopoly, where you can be as friendly or unfriendly with your friends as you want. You can download it free at the App Store or Google Play, and you can get into hyper-competitive games of Monopoly, just like you used to play at home, where you can destroy your friends' properties with a wrecking ball. You can also steal all their money in a bank heist. So that's pretty fun. Or you can work together and try to build each other up in team challenges as well. So find whatever you want to do at Monopoly Go. Once again, you can download that for free on Google Play or the App Store. Coming right back in here to the Locked On Vikings podcast, talking to Locked On Bama right now, talking to Luke Robinson, who spent 5 years watching Will Reichard kick field goals, had I don't think he had a single miss in his second season, and then spent 3 years as around like a high 8 or a mid 80% kicker. And some really clutch moments, right? So, I mean, here's I'll give you the preface. I'm not a big fan of drafting kickers. There's just a value conversation that's not particularly interesting to the people who cover the college game, I don't think. But the idea of him is, kicking under the lights, right? The pressure constantly, because it's Bama and you're in playoff games and you're in bowl games and you're in, conference championships and all that. So like evaluating kickers is tough. It's like, did you make it? Did you miss it? It's kind of binary, but with kickers, there's always a story. So what is the story of Will Reichard?
First of all, Will Reichard is the all-time leading scorer in the NCAA. That's huge. Okay. That is, look, when you hear about, again, you talk about stories, there's always some kicker or so that was on a team like Iowa that's not great at, scoring touchdowns, but they kick a lot of field goals or whatever. And that guy is the all-time leading scorer. So that's a little bit deceptive. You would almost think that Will Reichard's would be deceptive because he plays for Alabama and they score a lot of points. And so he naturally gets to kick a lot of extra points, kick a lot of field goals, whatever. But I think it goes a little bit further than that. Alabama's history with kickers is not great. Okay. Again, I grew up at a time of Van Tiffin and Philip Doyle. NFL diehards may know those names, but
went over my head. I'm either too young or didn't pay attention to kickers early enough.
Well, then there was a string in Nick Saban's time where it's like Alabama just couldn't get the kicker to do it right. I mean, very famously, the kick six, Alabama against Auburn in the Iron Bowl, kept Alabama from winning its third straight national championship, which they would have done had they won that game. And if they'd had a kicker, they would have won it. And they just didn't. And it blew up in their face. And I think that sort of changed a little bit about the way Nick Saban recruited kickers. And very fortunately, Alabama had a couple of dudes that come through and from the state of Alabama. Will Reichard is one of those guys. He's from Hoover, Alabama. He's got to be one of the all-time leading scorers in AHSAA history, which is Alabama High School Athletic Association. Just a fabulous kicker in high school. Now, he got hurt early in his career, ironically punting, because Alabama needed him to punt at the time. Now, he was kicking too, but and it hurt the Tide. But he came back from that. He was going to test the waters in the draft last year. He ended up coming back to Alabama another year. He's married. So that, again, for some people that may not mean anything. I think it shows stability and it shows maturity. And he is a guy that has, like you said, there is probably no more pressure position in this state, which is a college football diehard state, probably more so than anywhere else.
It's religion. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the two most pressure-packed positions to me are the quarterback at Alabama and the kicker at Alabama. Okay. We've had a lot of great running backs, and Auburn's had a lot of great players too. I'm not trying to diss them. I'd love to, but I'm not. But I think because Alabama has been burned by a kicker so many times, even last year, Will Reichard against Tennessee, Bryce Young gets us in a position to essentially kick a field goal to probably win the game. And Reichard misses like a 49-yarder, which is something he usually makes routinely. He just that game he missed it. Okay. Well, he came back this year just with a vengeance. He ends up being all-time leading scorer in NCAA history. He kicks big kicks in the SEC championship game. He really kicked a lot big kicks in the Iron Bowl against Auburn. He did a lot of great things. And he can punt if you need him. I think that is incredibly important in the NFL because you have limited roster positions. So you only got
you don't see a lot of that, but sure, if somebody gets hurt.
Right. Hey, look, if your punter gets hurt and you don't have another punter, you got a problem.
You're going for it on fourth downs all of a sudden.
Yeah, all of a sudden. So I think you're going to love Will Reichard. He is a good dude. He's buttoned up. He's smart. He's played under the limelight for a while now. So I don't think any of the bright lights of the NFL are going to scare him or nothing like that. I think you're going to like Will Reichard a lot. I mean, again, I've been bragging on Dallas Turner a lot, but I'm going to tell you, Will Reichard may go down as one of your favorites because field goal kicking to me in the NFL is more important. If you've ever, and I know FanDuel is one of our sponsors, right? If you've ever gambled on NFL football, it always comes down to a field goal. It always does.
Right. You're always 2.5 points off. Yeah.
It always does. So we need a kicker. And I think Will Reichard's going to make you guys very, very happy.
That would be music to Vikings fans' ears. I don't know how familiar you are with our lore, but there's the Falcons game you were talking about earlier. Very famous missed kick there. Very famous missed kick from Blair Walsh about a decade ago.
Oh, it was in the cold, right? Y'all playing in the stadium before you got the new one built?
Yeah, we were in the Gopher Stadium.
That's right, the Gopher
at the university, yeah. And then you can even go back to the 70s, and there's a couple of playoff games against San Francisco that have multiple missed kicks from Fred Cox that you can get the old guys all worked up about. So there's a long history, we'll say, of kicking woes. So if he were the guy, if he were the Sebastian Janikowski type, 15 years, he's our kicker, that would be quite the salve to a lot of very upset people. But let's talk a little more nitty gritty. So he's got a big leg. These are long kicks. So is this guy? I mean, is he like is the sell of him, good from 50 plus, or is there like a range that he struggles more with? Is there on the hash, inside the hash? Like, is there any pattern like that you have happened to pick up over the years?
No, I think he's got every kick. And I mean, look, if he had to kick a 54-yarder in college, I would have felt good. I mean, better than 75%. That's how I would have felt. You're always nervous in college specifically. But I think that, and in the pros now they're making routine 58-yarders. I mean, which is bananas. I mean, that's not human.
Yeah.
So does he have that strong of a leg? I guess we'll see. And I guess he can develop it, but he was never really called upon to kick one that long at Alabama. So I'm not going to say that he can or can't. I would feel good about it. If you told me, hey, he's got to make a 58-yarder to win this game, I'd say, okay, I'd put my money on Will Reichard. I think he's a clutch. I don't think it matters which side of the field he's on. I think all that's fine. And, again, I think you can't discount the magnitude what it takes
the mental.
I mean, it is a stressful position because it's cost us so many times. And look, it's like the Wade Boggs effect, right? You can do all these great things, and then all of a sudden you let one ball roll through your legs, and nobody ever lets you forget it. And if you
Blair Walsh, good kicker for 4 years, missed one from 27, his whole career fell apart.
And by the way, he was a Georgia guy too. So, I mean, he's from the South, from Southeastern Conference. So I think Will Reichard can help avenge him. And, bro, did Blair Walsh ever even get over that, like in terms of his career? I don't know that he did.
They didn't cut him that year. They cut him in the middle of the next season. He just was a total disaster, total head case. He bounced around a little bit and then pretty much fell apart. Yeah.
But and again, kickers are like that. I don't think Will Reichard's going to be that dude because, again, I know it's a negative on the short side, but if you think about, he misses the kick against Tennessee, right? And like it cost Alabama a shot to play for a national championship in the end. They did end up going 10-2. They had a great year. They blew out Kansas State. Bryce Young was a quarterback for that team, and he didn't fall apart. He didn't fall apart. He kept playing through it, and he came back. And in my opinion, he should have won the Lou Groza Award for best college kicker this year. But instead, it went to the kicker from Miami of Ohio, who incidentally just transferred to Alabama.
There you go. Perfect. So, okay, one last one on the kicker, and then we can wrap things out. Give me what's the Will Reichard kick? Give me the one kick that like is when you think about his legacy in Alabama. That's what's the one you picture?
Wow. Okay. This one's not going to mean as much to y'all. It's going to mean a lot to me. I remember a kick in the Iron Bowl, 2021, where we're playing in Jordan-Hare Stadium. And for those who don't know about Alabama-Auburn rivalry, think Minnesota, Chicago, Minnesota, Green Bay.
Oh yeah, no, ancient hatred. Yeah,
it is. And
it's not the same as college in the Midwest. I think it's different down south. Yeah,
it is. I mean, like y'all don't understand. Like this is our thing. And I know y'all love the Vikings, but y'all love the T-Wolves. Y'all love all that. We don't have any of that pro stuff. We got colleges, and you either went to Alabama or Auburn, and if you didn't, they call you sidewalk alums and all this other stuff. But we have a bad history of choking or screwing up a game in Jordan-Hare Stadium, which is where Auburn plays, right? I always say
from the kick six and all that.
Out of the bones of dead unicorns and leprechauns. I mean, because it's like the structural steel is all horseshoes. It's unbelievable. But Will Reichard made a kick that he actually made two in that game, one in overtime, one in the regular period, where we had to have them, and it was just perfect for him to miss them. I mean, it was like it was all set up for that to be the lucky moment that Auburn got, and instead he made them both, and we ended up having Bryce Young hit John Mechie for, college has this dumb 2-point conversion rule in overtime now. That's just dumb.
Right. Yeah. The soccer style.
Yeah. It's really dumb. I mean, but we hit a 2-point conversion when we stopped Auburn. It was Bryce Young to John Mechie, Bryce Young at Carolina and John Mechie for the Texans now. And it worked out. But though people forget how important those kicks were. Like you're always going to remember John Mechie and doing the Karate Kid crane kick thing at the end. But it was, if Will Reichard's not on that team, if we have somebody with less gumption, we are in trouble. And we were a much better team. We just never play well down there. And I think in the NFL, you know how that goes sometimes. Sometimes you're the better team and a lesser team beats you. But yeah, Will Reichard to me is that is the other beauty of Will Reichard. I can remember Philip Doyle for beating Tennessee 9-6 in 1990. I can remember Van Tiffin beating Auburn in the Iron Bowl in Birmingham with a 54-yarder as time expired, right? But Will Reichard, to me, I just don't remember any natural game winners that I'm like, hey, Will Reichard was the picture of consistency. And not just consistent, but like excellence, picture of excellence. That's a better way to say it, because you never worried about, if he ever missed one, you're like, was it a bad snap? I mean, somebody had to do something.
Somebody else messed up, huh?
Somebody else you're blaming somebody else. You're like, I mean, it's like, when Dante Culpepper in his prime or Randy Moss, you're like, he dropped the ball. What was it? Did somebody coat it in Vaseline? What the heck's that?
Yeah, no, that had to be wrong.
Right.
Yeah. No, I get it. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. Real quick, tell everybody where they can find you, and then I've taken enough of your time.
Yeah, check us out at Locked On Bama. We will definitely be talking more Dallas Turner and Will Reichard tomorrow. Jimmy Stein will be on. I mean, he and I are both the same way. We love the NFL. We just don't really have a team. I mean, we pull for Alabama dudes. And so, boy, you got two fans now because we love us some Will Reichard and Dallas Turner.
Excellent stuff. Luke, thank you so much.
All right, appreciate it.
Thank you so much again for hanging out on the Locked On Vikings podcast. I will be back stateside on May 20th, but we will still have Monday, Wednesday, Friday shows until then. And then in the summer, very cool project coming up. So get excited for that. I will see you all then. And as always, Skull.